What's going on there, guys? Good evening. Your Earthmaster here on the live stream with an update video on this December 15th, 2021. Trying to jump ahead to Christmas. 6:10 p.m. California time. The latest quake on the globe, a 2.8 earthquake, once again up here around the Alaska region. Seen some movement taking place since the last update video earlier this morning we need to chat about, including a 4.2 down here around the South Africa region. Let's go ahead and check out activity around the globe here on the USGS map here of looks like 2.5 and above magnitudes here. Let's go over here to the South Africa region where we had a 4.2 out around the Johannesburg area. Not too common do we see earthquake activity out there. Looks like just a little distance there from the big area, the big city out there. Looks like about maybe 35, 40 miles or so. 4.2 at 5.0 kilometers below the surface. A couple people reported feeling it. Looking at the regional info on earthquake activity within this region here, does show some movement throughout at least local history, or recent history, I should say. And where'd they go? They just disappeared. There they are. Up around this region here does see some earthquakes between the 4.5 and 5.0 threshold. Looks like possibly a little bit larger as well, around the 5.0 level. So not uncommon to see activity within this region. It's just been a while since I've seen some movement there in the South Africa region. Of course, we do get some activity around the Southwest Indian Ridge quite a bit. But for now, 4.2 up there in the northern part of South Africa. Looking at the South Sandwich Trench, seen some further activity as well with a pair of earthquakes around the 35-kilometer depth here for a couple subduction zone earthquakes. 4.9, the largest earthquake within that sequence. Some activity still ramping up around the South America region, although not quite as active. 4.2 earthquake. This one was coming in. When did that come in here? It looks like 05. A little bit ago. Actually, way earlier this morning, that 4.2 came in. 232 kilometers for that deep earthquake there. In the South America region, areas around Middle America Trench and Puerto Rico all pretty quiet over the last 24 hours. Just a couple of small sporadic earthquakes around the Puerto Rico area. Up north here, that, whoa, what do we got up here in Northern California? A 2.3 earthquake. This is pretty rather interesting here. This is a pretty deep earthquake if this does measure out. A 2.3 earthquake near Maxwell, California at 30 kilometers. Now, it's well south of the subduction zone, which would be the Cascadia, which kind of comes in here at this angle down over Northern California. So areas south here don't really see super deep earthquakes like that. So I'm going to have to watch this and see if it's been reviewed, which it hasn't. So this could get revised. It's still on automatic status. Preliminary data coming in. We'll keep an eye on that and update if we need to. Let's see what else we got in Northern California. Some activity around Clear Lake and the Ukiah area around the Macama Fault Zone. And of course the geyser activity, typical movement in that region with Mount Konocti very close nearby. And the San Andreas Fault, some further activity within the last hour around the creeping section of that plate boundary near the Santa Cruz Mountains. Activity along the eastern crest of the Sierra Nevada is still kind of low when it comes to earthquake activity compared to what we've seen over the past few months or so. We are seeing a little bit of uptick once again around the Walker, California area, the Antelope Valley region. This area over the last 2 days has seen hardly anything kick up. So now we're seeing a renewed movement along the Antelope Valley area. Mono Lake, all pretty quiet. Some activity outside of Long Valley supervolcano with a couple microquakes down here around Round Valley. Some deep movement at 11 kilometers there in that area of the state. Of course, activity around the Candelaria Hills, around Tonopah, Nevada. Still seeing some movement there in that region of the state. And earthquake activity looks like in the Ridgecrest region kind of ramping up as well. All these areas up here and up north along the eastern crest has been relatively quiet, but looks like that is changing in a big way The only other area down here in the southern part of the state along the Pacific Plate, which is over here, looks pretty quiet. This area really hasn't ramped up yet when it comes to typical background activity. Just a couple small, a little handful of earthquakes in the southern part of the state, but nothing really to even discuss there in this area of the state. Down south here, 4.8 kicked up in the Gulf of California. Looks like the Oregon earthquake disappeared. I find that rather odd. We did have I believe we had an earthquake off the Oregon coastline earlier this morning. I don't see that there. I'm going to have to check back on that. Intermountain West region, a little bit of movement throughout the Utah area and also up again around Montana and all throughout Idaho. Some earthquake activity around the Sawtooth Fault Zone up here on the northern end. Yellowstone National Park, let's go ahead and check them out real quick and see what we got there as we look at this area. Not a whole lot going on here. Looks pretty quiet. What do we got here for 1800? Did we lose data over here? It looks like we're kind of lacking some data in some of these stations. Doesn't look like these have updated. Let's see if we got the next day here. Hasn't been found. Okay, that's kind of odd. I was just looking at the data on these stations here and UTC time over here. Okay, no, it looks right. UTC time. So we're just looking at a couple small microquakes in the vicinity of Yellowstone National Park, but not anything significant. No swarming taking place here within the region of Yellowstone. Tremor activity tonight has remained low. Last time I checked, 0 epicenters once again along the Cascadia subduction zone. We're in a pretty significant quiet spell. Looking at the graphs over the last 20, or at least the last 11 years, shows times where we've had some quiet spells, so it's not unheard of. So just kind of keeping an eye on that as we stretch into almost like a month-long quiet spell with only a little bit of activity within that month time, just a little bit. What else we got here, folks? Into the Oklahoma region. A little small earthquake there. It looks like around south of Enid, northwest of OKC. Up in the north, though, a little bit of movement around the Gibson, Kansas area. Salina sits up here to the northwest. 4.0 happened earlier this morning. Since then, just a couple small 3-pointers, it looks like, following that 4.0 earthquake this morning, which was felt broadly over a region due to the shallow depth there at 3 kilometers. New Madrid zone sits here in this region of the world. Pretty dangerous area when it comes to seismic hazard, as it shows here on the map. Significant seismic zone. New Madrid fault zone is a pretty scary area when it comes to the potential of a large quake, and the population density in here does not help that one bit. They have seen earthquakes in the past of large size, and no doubt they will again, but I think got a little bit to go before that does occur. But we do see a little bit of activity ramping up here in the New Madrid zone on occasion. Looking over the last 7 days or so, shows some microquake activity building up over the last week and the last 30 days. Seen a line of movement here along that New Madrid zone. But today, just a little 2.2 out in the Arkansas area, eastern areas of the Appalachian Mountains and North Carolina region, all pretty quiet. Guatemala City, or actually on the Mexico side there, 101 kilometer deep, 4.8 into the Middle America Trench. Pretty deep earthquake there. What else we got here? Alaska is kicking up here, obviously. A lot of red circles, microquakes. This is all very common if you look at this movement on any given day. This is all typical movement here in this area of the state. No major swarms, no significant areas to really watch at the moment. The Aleutian Islands, 4.3 that kicked up this morning. 128 kilometers here into this subduction zone. And Japan remains relatively quiet here across this area of the trench. Did see a little bit of activity north of Tokyo on the east coast, 4.3, 54 kilometers into the Japan Trench. The swarming of earthquake activity south of Japan along the this trench right here. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that right now. Showing a little bit of dwindling movement compared to yesterday, although not completely. A couple fours kicking up back to back there around that region. And aftershock activity continues in the Indonesia region following that 7.3 a few days ago. Tonga Trench, Kermadec Trench, a little bit of activity, including this 5.1, 478 kilometers into the, looks like the Kermadec Trench region. New Zealand looks pretty quiet, as well as the South Pacific Ocean. Let's look at solar weather activity. It's kind of a big deal at the moment when it comes to the solar flare threat, which continues to show some significant growing possibilities here on the sunspots. Look at all this activity ramping up. It almost looks like a slow forming thunderstorm, if you will, if you look at radar over a period of, well, days in this case. These three sunspots here looking pretty scary as they come around the bend. 2906 also earth facing side, almost a bullseye when it comes to the earth. If it were to produce a CME or a significant flare, we're going to have to watch these pretty closely. That's a lot of sunspot activity ramping up over a short amount of time. These things are fueling up like crazy. Look at this feature here on the sun. I'm not for certain, but we got these eyeballs looking at us with a mouth and a nose, and all this sunspot activity just ramping up all of a sudden with a mean-looking sun face pointing right at Earth. You guys see that? That's a little on the scary side. Some activity up here to the north as well. These are coronal holes outlined, but the outline themselves, man, make this thing look like a scary pumpkin in the sky with a line of potential severe solar flares coming at us. We're going to pay attention to that, be watching that pretty closely. Let's see here. I need to go back and look at the threat level right now. Still stands at 85%. I expect to see these bump up pretty quickly, if not tonight. From M flare, these probably jump up to 40 to 50%. X flare should go up to about 20. Looking at the dynamics of these sunspots here show rapid development. All of these look potentially very active. There's much more coming around the bend towards the northern hemisphere of the sun, but there's a lot to take into account here and see how far these can develop into something significant. It's just I'm surprised at how fast these things popped up out of the blue. Right here in this map here, let's see here, on average it takes about 13.5 days for a region to transit the far side of the sun. So of course obviously it goes slowly, but look over here around the backside, see some further lighting. Can't get this up anymore. We got some heavy rain and wind coming in again tonight. It's been like this non-stop. I'm hoping the power doesn't go down. So if the stream does go down, I will try to get it up quickly as possible. But yeah, looking at this image over here, let me see if I can pop up the other. Oh man, I wanted to see a little bit larger image. Wow, that's coming down pretty significant. Anyway, you can see obviously, folks, this is that trail of sunspot activity. Just look at what's coming around. It's still lighting up over here on this side. It's going to be a scary looking face facing the Earth side here really soon. Right now, the 3-day geomagnetic forecast for storming is very low, but that's going to change very rapidly if we see these sunspots pop off, some flares. Looks like it has beta gamma delta magnetic configuration, produced a number of minor C flares. The largest of these was a C8.1. There will be an increased chance for an isolated moderate M flare during the next 24 hours. I think that's almost a given, definitely a given here. Looking at the sun, these things are not looking like they're dwindling down. If anything, these things are ramping up pretty significantly. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here get this video uploaded before the power goes down. I hope it doesn't. Stay safe out there, and as always, be prepared. The best thing you can do is just be prepared for anything. You know, the world's getting to be a very scary place. Anything is possible as we head into the future, I believe. I think a lot of stuff is on edge. The world is kind of on edge at the moment, and I think earthquake activity and whatnot. I just feel something's brewing up pretty significantly. Either it's got something to do with the solar flare activity kicking up. I haven't been able to sleep past couple nights. My mind's been wide awake, just like it's like I'm studying for a test or something, like my body's preparing for something. And I don't know if it's the elevated solar flare activity, solar sunspot activity. A lot of people are sensitive when it comes to stuff like that. I think I am one of them. And sunspot activity, solar weather, has a major effect on not only life here on Earth, but other stuff. You know, plate tectonics, weather. So it will be interesting here in the coming days as these sunspots ramp up and face the Earth side. We will be back a little bit later, folks. Live stream is up and running for now. Hopefully it stays up. We'll chat you guys a little bit later. Peace out.